Okay, anyway, my name is David. I'm a pianist, composer. I do recordings, engineer. I have a record company. I started HD Tracks, started Chesky Records, and I also write children's books, so I do a lot of things. But anyway, we're here to discuss audio, and I want to just say a few things. First of all, I have a new company. This is it. It's called the AudiophilesSociety.com, and it's designed to make 3D recordings for two-channel stereo. But we'll get into that in a moment. First, let's discuss what is audio, okay? It's a magician's trick. There's two boxes in your living room, and we're going to create an illusion like a magician pulling a rabbit out of the hat that there's an orchestra or band there. Because we know this is not true. So all of audio is an illusion, okay? So what is the illusion we want to present? First of all, do you understand English? It's okay? English is all good? Okay. Because otherwise, I can speak Portuguese, Japanese, but no German. So anyway, so this is an illusion. What do we want to do here? We can do two things. We can put a band into your living room, or two, we can transform your living room into a concert hall. Those are your two options. You can record dry, and it's in your living room, or you can record wet with reverb and things and try to make a space. It's the illusion that we're in a concert hall. I've always picked two. My entire life, I've recorded with a single-point microphone. When we started at Chesky Records with a C24, and we recorded in Bloomline, because we wanted to capture real people in a real space. So I've always wanted to transform your living room into a concert hall, okay? So that's what we did. So forever, we started with Bloomline, and then later we went to sound field technology, where we tried to do surround 6.0 instead of 5.1. Then we went to binaural, and then we went to spaced omnis, and now I'm doing something with computers based on how we perceive the world to try to even make it better. So first of all, human beings, we don't see the world like a microphone or a scientific instrument. I want everybody to write this down. There is an example on the web. It's called the McGurk effect. Does anybody know what the McGurk effect is? Okay, one person. Well, I'm going to tell you what the McGurk effect is. It teaches us that we're animals, and we are hardwired to perceive things a certain way. If you go online, you go to Google, look at the McGurk effect. There's a man, he's saying ba, 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 ba. And then he says va, 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 and then he says ba. And then when he says ba, they change the video, and his mouth makes a V sound. So even though he's saying ba, the eye sees the mouth saying V, and you would bet €1,000 that he's saying va. You close your eyes, he's saying ba. You open your eyes, he's saying va. Because the eye trumps the ear. And the worst place we hear is here, because we have eyes. We hear much better here, much better there. We hear spatial cues great, because 5,000 years ago you're in the jungle and you hear something there and you say, oh my God, it's a bear, run. So this is how we perceive it. So knowing this, and this is not science, it's my theory, it's not proven. I believe that there's certain cues that make us feel space. Delays, how we mix things. And so what I'm trying to do is experiment on milliseconds, delays, phase, all kinds of things to create, instead of a 60-degree triangle with two speakers, open it up to like 180 degrees, massive sound, wall of sound, and try to emulate height by doing these tricks, okay? And this is what I'm working on. It's not the only way to do it, but it's like a restaurant. Some people have a French, Italian restaurant. This is my restaurant. So this is what I'm trying to do with my company. I want to create the illusion that You hit play, and it's like, wow, there's an orchestra in front of me. It's massive. I hear height, I hear space forever. And that's my thing, you know? Now, to really do this correctly, I believe, first of all, in my house I have electrostatic speakers. I'm in my studio, I have like 10 speakers, you know, all kinds of little mini monitors. But when I check it in my house, I'll just tell you, I have an old pair of Quad 57s, which I had rebuilt, and they're super fast, and they're really detailed, and I have electrostatic tweeters, because I like to listen, for my work, I like to listen to super low level resolution. But the Quad, like all electrostatics, is dynamically limited. I really believe in the future, a system will be designed that has super high efficiency, super low distortion, and then we can do some type of binaural recording, and it's done for your ear, and then we do crosstalk cancellation. I'm also in the Bach room on the 4th floor with Professor Shawari from Princeton, and we're working on this other system as well. So you should stop by and hear that can be done in the future. But I think, 10 years down the road, we're not going to be thinking of just listening to a nice tube amp and some things there, which is okay. But that's a flavor. It's like you want to put syrup on your pancakes. What I want to do is recreate virtual reality. How can I take your house and I can make your house into a concert hall? And these are the things we need. It has to be super low distortion, super fast, super directional, with crosstalk cancellation and some type of binaural recording. And that's going to be the future of audio. Now, that's theoretically where it should be, but of course you have large companies that want to make the world sound good for Alexa, so you have MP3s compressed for Alexa, and that kind of drives the world. It's just the way it is. McDonald's sells more than some nice little bistro. So that's kind of what my goal is for audio, and what we're working on there. What else was I going to say? And now another thing for me that's really important. More important than anything is low distortion, because I think the ear is so sensitive to distortion. Look, I'm talking to you now. Let's cover the microphone. And, my voice doesn't sound... It's very quiet and natural. The real world is like that. I think in audio, people make records for little speakers, for kids, compressed, and with equalization crazy. I don't want to do that. My microphones are flat. I want to record flat. I want it to sound very natural, like you're in a room. A lot of people don't like that. A lot of people want sugar and spice, and that's okay. But my recipe is I want it to be as natural as I can make a record. Just you're there, the tonality. But like I said, to play it back, we need correct playback system as well. So that's my thing. And for me, tone is the most important thing. When I started out with space and all that, but you know something? If I'm talking to you here, or if I'm talking to you from here or here, the space doesn't matter. But what's really important is if you have a tenor saxophone player and he spends 30 years of his life, or somebody has a Stradivarius, they spend 30 years, the tone of the instrument. Because the tone is the poetry of music. Okay, because I can, I'm also a musician, and I can pick up a score or read it. I don't even need to listen to it. Sometimes I enjoy it in my head more. But when you want to put the emotion into it, that's the tone. And the most important for me is when I hear a violin playing, I don't want to hear this zip, or when I hear old records, it's tilted up the upper mid-range, a violin doesn't sound like this. And if somebody played violin in an orchestra, they'd fire him. A violin is very rich and warm, and it has a density in the wood sound. And we don't get this on recordings and on playback. But this, for me, is the most important thing, because when the tone is correct, then you hear the poetry of the music. Okay? So that's what I'm working on now. I'm also a musician. I have a lot of jazz records. Next week, I'm going to be at the Staatskapelle in Dresden, right, for my Sophie Scholl thing with orchestra and choir. If anybody lives in Dresden, please come June 2nd. It's going to be nice. So my reference point is live music all day, because I play hours a day. I write, and I listen to music. So it's not like I don't expose to it. Now, let's talk about something else. That is my point of view. Let's make the analogy painting, okay? I would be a Dutch flower painter. I would see a flower and say, I want to paint it perfectly. And that's my artistic vision. The next guy would say, I want to be an abstract impressionist painter like Jackson Pollock. And I want to paint crazy. But they're both art, and it's both okay. So in audio, there's no one thing that's correct. Because if this person here wants to have a tube amp and rich speakers and all that, and that's what he enjoys, that's his art. And if the next person wants to have it Alexa and bright and compressed, that's his art. And if the next person wants to have electrostatics, it's whatever you like. Once I have a friend of mine, he's in a big rock and roll band. And I'm saying, your records are so like, whoa, bright and crazy and compressed. And he said, you know something, David? You go into a church, you hang your two Omnis. I want grunge because that's my sound, And I respect that because that is the sound he's trying to get. When you have an electric guitar like a Zeppelin band, they're not looking for purity. They want to create their own sound. And that's perfectly acceptable. So there's all ways to make a record and create this. But the bottom line of all of this, it's an illusion that you want to have an aesthetic experience. Let's say you go to work all day, you want to come home, you have a glass of wine. The most important thing is that you enjoy your hi-fi system and you enjoy the music, the best way you can. And anything else doesn't matter. If your friend says it doesn't this and this, I need a new cable, it doesn't matter because the idea is you have to pick a hi-fi system that you enjoy listening to, and the rest is off. Because what I like, I don't drink coffee, hate coffee. So if somebody says, this is the best coffee in the world, no thank you, So I like chocolate, and people I know don't like chocolate, but I'll sit there all day and eat chocolate. So it's the same thing with audio. There's no right and wrong. It's only this aesthetic that we create, and it's an art. And I'm going to tell you another thing. We live in a world today, everything is about money, units, money. These big companies, let's make 10 million of these, 50 million speakers, we'll make all this money. The beauty about the Munich Hi-Fi show, and if you think about it for a second, all these little rooms are artists. Everybody in there is an artist. Instead of using a paintbrush, they use a soldering iron. And everybody in this convention hall, the Munich Hi-Fi show, if you walk in and say, oh, you're the richest company here, I hear you're selling all this, it doesn't mean anything. But if you walk into a room and you go up to the designer and say, this is the best speaker I ever heard, this is the best amp that makes their day. So the beauty of this thing is, this high-end industry is really a little art colony. It's like a little crafts festival because everybody is putting their soul. It's not like a giant company with 1,000 people deciding, oh, we're going to make this speaker, we need this, and the public said they want this and they want it small. They don't think like this. Everybody builds something, and they think it's a beautiful creation like a sculpture, and they hope you like it. And that's why I like high-end audio, because it's one of the few places in the world left where people actually have passion for what they do, and they put love into it, and they don't care. It's not about the money. It's about making the best thing. And for me, as an idealist, it's like creating a piece of music. Same exact thing, amplifier, painting, sculpture, music, it's all the same. Okay? So those are my views. Now, I don't want to prepare a lecture and sit there with slides. That's not what I do. My thing is to talk to you. You ask me questions. I've been doing this for 40 years. I've made thousands of records. I made high-res records. I've done everything, conducted for movies, anything. I'm here for the next time. For the next time we have, ask me questions about your system, music, anything you want, and let's try to have this a nice interactive discussion and maybe learn something from everybody, and I can learn from you. So is there anybody who has a question so far? Yes.
If you make photographs,
Yeah.
have a white balance.
Right.
The professional photographer is setting before he takes the first picture.
Right.
Why isn't this using
You're right. Some people do it. Look, when we make a record, we set levels, we set all this, but there's no standard. Okay, some people make it in their house, and they just want to make it like this. There's no real standard in music for. I mean, one second. There's no standard in music to do this. There's no calibration. You know, when you make a movie, there's standards like that. But a lot of music is made in houses and pop and all this, and it's a little anarchy, you know. And it would be nice if there was a professional level and there was a professional equalization standard and all of that. But that then people would say, you know, you're dictating my art. It's a dictating art, just like saying to a person how to build the amplifier. You know, scientifically, it's a better idea. Artistically, it's not going to happen. Yes.
It's not question, but no partial response. Because last year there were fires in California and the whole sky was orange. So all the automatic cameras which had automatic balance were few, okay, sky is orange, but it should be blue, so they made all the colors false.
That's a good point. You know, did you hear what he said? No, anyway, he said last year in California there was fires everywhere. So everybody with their automatic cameras with settings would take a picture of the orange sky. The camera would say the sky can't be orange, and it made it blue. So there's all kinds of things. You know what? I'm for anarchy in art. You never know. Like when you have, like in music, like Schoenberg. You know, during their time, people thought these people were crazy. Varese, Schoenberg, people like that. Even Stravinsky, the Rite of Spring. You know, people went and they said, "What kind of nonsense is this?" You know, if there was a standard, then you wouldn't have this different art. And you know what's a great book to buy? You should buy a book called The Lexicon of Musical Invectives by Slavinsky. And it's interesting because it's a book of every great Western piece of music, Mahler 9, Beethoven, you know, Ninth Symphony, all these things, and every bad review. So when Beethoven's Ninth Symphony was premiered in London, the critics said, the worst. It's Beethoven is deaf. Beethoven's the song at the end sounds like Yankee Doodle Dandy, and it's a book full of this. And this is why you can't have these standards, because if we went by the standard and say Ninth Symphony Beethoven, didn't like it. You know, it's probably the greatest piece of music in the Western literature. And then when it came out, the same with the Rite of Spring, people revolted. So with art, you can't do this. So it's like that. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. You know, yeah, look. Yeah. Right. Yeah. 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 Well, yeah, this is true. But, you know, right now we don't have the facilities to calibrate your room because you know what? Let's just say you buy a pair of speakers and you put them in your room and you have rugs. He buys the same exact speakers. He puts it in his room. He has a stone floor. Everything's different. But getting back to that, this is something I want to bring up for a second. 1 second. That the most important thing in your hi-fi system is room acoustics. You want to hear the speaker, not the room. And you know, the problem is this. My records, I make them for you to be in the 60-degree triangle. It's very important that your speakers are not near a wall because I'm putting in the reflections I want you to hear. If your speaker is next to that wall, the wall puts in it and it ruins what I do. So this is very different. I would rather have a cheap hi-fi system set up correctly in a good room that's damped than a million euro system in a stone room. It's never going to work. So whatever we do, waste of time. So my thing is, the best thing for me is semi-near field, 60 degrees, you sit in an equilateral triangle, okay? That's the starting point. The next thing is don't let your speakers get too near the wall unless it's designed for that. You want space. And the next thing is you don't want a super reflective room. Damp your walls down. If you can do those three things, then you can start to hear what your speaker did. But if you spend €1 million on a system and you just set it up like that, don't waste your money. It really has to be set up properly if you want to hear what we did. Now, if you don't care, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It just really doesn't matter. If you want to buy a fancy champagne and serve it in a paper cup while you're on the pool, you can do this. But we make records in the studio. They're mixed and made to be in a 60-degree triangle to get the best out of listening to the audio. Now, the music doesn't matter because you can be in your kitchen, walking around and hearing the music. That's another thing. But we're here talking about how to reproduce audio. So we're in a studio and we're doing our half. Then you have to go in your home and you have to do your work to create this system so it works as a circle. Other than that, it doesn't work. So what are you going to say?
You basically answered my question already, but first of all, thank you for everything you said about multi-channel.
Yeah.
Fan of that. What you say about recreating the room, it sounds like you want to try to bring the binaural idea to speaker systems with very little reflection from the room. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's what I, in a perfect world, would love to do. Yes, that is what we want to do. But remember, I do a few things. We do binaural. First of all, in the future, the best way to record in the future is not going to be binaural. It's going to be high-order ambisonics microphone with many channels. And in the future, you're going to have you're going to take a picture of your ear, and the iPhone is going to go to the computer, and it's because remember this. There's no two people with the same pinna. It's like your fingerprint. Can't match. Binaural, if I make a binaural record, this half may hear the binaural and this half may. You can't because it's a different ear. So it's gambling. So the dummy head is nice, but it's sort of like really primitive because first of all, it's the dummy's head ear. So if your ear matches the dummy, that's good, and then your ear has to be able to hear it. But in the future, it will be coded like that, and that's the best way if you want to do virtual reality. And I also believe this is going to be coupled with VR glasses. Look, I believe in the future, my children are not going to listen to records. They're going to be on the beach somewhere in Brazil, and they're going to go home and say, tonight, should I hear the Berlin Philharmonic? Can I go watch the opera in Munich, or will I watch the ballet in London? They pay their money, they put on glasses and a hi-fi or a headphone, and you are going to be there. And you're going to look this way, and the guy's going to be reading the program. This way, the guy's going to be eating candy. You're looking all around, and that's going to be where this all ends up. So people are not going to have to sit there. So let's just say you listen to a concert in the Berlin Hall. It could be half empty, but maybe 100,000 people around the world will be there. You know, so you're not going to have to live in the big city. You know, people who I live in New York City. I walk out any night, I can do whatever I want. But, you know, it's still not true because, you know what? I'm a musician composer. The music I want to hear, I can't hear every night because the programming in concert halls is mostly Brahms, Mozart, you know, things like this. I don't want to hear this. I've heard this. I want to hear more modern music for myself. You know, very new what's going on here, like Thomas Locke or Gregor Mahoff or all these young people that they're not going to be programmed all over the world. But if they're programmed in a certain part of Austria, I can watch that. And if this guy's playing in France, I can watch that, like a Duthier concert. Where am I going to see this? I love his music, but this is not accessible music. But by having this system in the future, everybody's going to hear new and exciting things wherever you are. You know, so that's going to be down the line where this is all going to end up. Okay, but right now we're still little primitive and the hearing speakers and boxes and all that. And yes, in the future you'll hit a button, your room will go away. There'll be DSP, phased array speakers, where it's not going to even matter where you put the speaker. But today, the best way to do it is 60-degree triangle away from the walls, damp, 50% damped. You don't want a dead room like rugs on the ceiling everywhere. You want a 50-50 like in a studio, And then you have a chance of hearing what the music is, and secondly, the equipment you bought. Okay, so you might as well just go set it up outside, So this is very important in your homes. I see a lot of homes I go into, and there's these very expensive systems with a big mirror next to it. And you just hear the reflections. I hear this room right now. You just hear reflections. And you know what? People say you need 40 milliseconds between a wall and you. I believe it should be at least 200 milliseconds. For me, I've done a lot of experiments. You have to have that delay so far away that the ear just says, oh, it's not part of the music. Otherwise, it starts to blur, And I do this all the time. I experiment with delays. And when the delay and the reverb are really close together, it blurs the music, And this is another thing I want to talk about. How do you want to hear music? The best way to have a great focus is anechoic, dead room, okay? Because then it's there, boom. The more reverb you have, the more diffuse the sound has to be. It's just that way. So if I'm in this room without the microphone, my voice is very dead, okay? But if I walk now to the opera house, it's going to have more verb. And if I went into a cathedral, it's going to even have more verb. It's very diverse, very diffused. So the idea is, what is the balance you want to hear? I play with this all day, saying, okay, I have my space, but I lost 5% of my precise imaging. And people say, I want that. But it's the balance. What do you want to choose? If I take reverb out of the question, you'll get very super precise pinpoint imaging. But if you go to a concert hall, the next time you go, close your eyes. You have no idea where the music's coming from. It's all around you. There's so much reverb. And that brings me to another point. When you go to a concert, you don't listen to music. You watch music. Because remember the McGurk effect? The eye trumps the ear. So if you're anywhere you sit in the concert hall, that's the violin. Because you see the violinists, they're sitting there, the brain says, boom, there's the image, thank you. And if you close your eyes, then you say, where's the violin? What happened to everything? It moved away. Then you realize how reverberant. But we can filter out all the reverb in a concert hall with our eyes to the point we like it. The brain is a computer. It's like a little hi-fi system. It sees it and it says, okay, I'm going to adjust it. So even if it's really reverbery, you see the violins, you hear them, you see all that, and you just lock into it, and then you can decipher it. But we don't have this at home. Remember, it's a magician trick. There's just two boxes, and we have to pull the rabbit out of the hat and say, how can we do this? So it can't be realistic. You can't go in there because we have to create this artificial world. It's virtual. And the idea is, how do I make this happen in your house? I have to use these tools, So that's all part of it, It's, when I started out, I was a very purist, saying, okay, 2 microphones, that's it. But as we go along, we say, how can we even enhance it? Because we don't have the optical. If we were making videos of music, then we don't have to have this. Then whatever we do, the brain's going to say it's good. If I was making music videos, I would probably just say make it as clean as possible, a little reverb, and the brain's going to fill in everything else. You're just not even going to pay attention to the sound. You're going to just be watching the violin player. You had a question? Oh, anything else? Another question? Yes.
There's been a lot of hype about high-res music, whereas on the other hand, the A/B test is claiming that hardly anyone hears the difference between regular CD quality and what's your view on this?
I believe we need to go back to 8-track cassettes. That's what I like. But you know something? They're wrong. Because we really need, for spatial cues, to be able to do very precise imaging, spatially. And when you increase the sample rates, you may not be aware of it, but you have better spatial cues. I think it's 5 microseconds or something like that. But at 96, you get them. Okay? Now, the other thing is, it doesn't cost any more money to do this. So why not? You know what? When you watch Netflix, it's HD. It's just that's the standard. So we should not think about MP3, 44.1 and all that. We just should raise the standard up to HD, and that's it. Because we have the bandwidth today, all studios, you just hit a button. What's the big deal if you do that? Now, if you're making records with lots and lots of tracks, then the computers get overloaded. But if you're making 4 or 5 tracks, 192 is not a problem. So why shouldn't I just hit the 192 button? What is the downside of that? At 96, I'll tell you another thing. For me, it makes a difference. Look, I'm not telling you this as a mathematician, but in my studio, with my new company, I do things at all different sample rates. But I process everything at 192 because it sounds better to me. I've done it a million times. It sounds different. And it's just at 192, I have better spatial cues. Sometimes at 4824, I feel it's more rich, but I don't have the spatial cues. I feel like it collapses. And I do this all day long. All day, I sit there and I do this. So with my new technique, sometimes if we have to do a lot of tracks, we could do 4824. And on my website, we're not saying we're pure, everything is 192. We say everything is a different sample rate, whatever we have to do, but it's all processed at 192 because it sounds better. What I'm doing now is like a cook. I'm sitting there putting all this together, mixing it and saying, well, I got to bake it at 400 degrees instead of 350. We're being upfront about it. But for me, when we process at 192, it just sounds better, more space. And that's if you're looking for space. If you're looking for maybe punch, maybe the lower sampling rate tightens things up a little. And I can't tell you why because I'm not a mathematician. But that's just for my ears, So, like I said, there's no downside to doing HD recordings. And, look, most people are happy with MP3s. Let me ask you a question. How many people do you know who listen to music while not doing anything else? Most people, music is background. They're cooking, they're with a girlfriend, they're having dinner. It's there. So it's not important. When music is not being listened to, it's not important. Be MP3. But if you're the type of person who wants to say, I'm going in my room, I had a crazy day, I'm going to have a glass of wine, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to listen to the Mahler 5, don't bother me. I want to be in a concert hall. That's what high-end audio is for. That's it. Otherwise, just get a Siri and play it in the background. But for me, I like that engagement. I want to sit there and close the door and just feel like I'm in a concert hall and this is the music I want to hear. And I got to tell you another thing. I like hi-fi, high-end audio more than concerts. And I'm going to tell you why. Because let's just say I'm a lawyer and I'm working all day Friday and I'm tired and I have the worst day and I have a headache. 8 o'clock, I have tickets to go to the concert hall. I'm not ready to receive that. I'm just going through the motions. I go to a lot of concerts. I fly into a town. My friend's playing. I go to the concerts. I'm so jet lagged. I'm just sitting there like not with it. The beauty about high-end audio is I can get up Sunday morning after a great night's sleep, feel great. I'm in my pajamas. Nobody's in the house. My kids are sleeping. My dog is not there. It's great. And then I can put on a piece of Bach music. I'm ready to hear Bach, and Bach is ready for me. And that's it. And then I can focus, and it's dead quiet. Nobody's coughing. And you know what's great about it? I say, that was great. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play it again. You can't do that. You can't go to the Berlin Philharmonic and say, that was great. Do it again. So this is the beauty of high-end audio. You can hear great music anytime you want to hear it. So for me, it's better. For 2 reasons. I can hear the music I want to hear because I can't hear it, and I can hear it when I want to hear it. So that's why I really like it. And then it's important to me then to try to get the distortion, the sound as great as I can to have the virtual concert hall. Yes, if I was the king or Bill Gates and had the Berlin Philharmonic and saying, I feel good, I want to hear Mahler 5 right now, let's go. You can do that, but we don't, so we have the next best thing as an audio system to do that. So that's why I really like high-res music. And then I also like it to hear people I can't hear. I'm a piano player. I love Oscar Peterson and Art Tatum. If you're Bill Gates, you can't hire him anymore. So that's the beauty about audio is I can listen to Karajan, Bernstein, Art Tatum, Oscar Peterson anytime I want. They've never died. You know, my piano teacher was John Lewis from the Modern Jazz Quartet. And you know, he's really nice to me, and I like his music, and he taught me a lot. And now I can hear him play anytime I want. I've never lost the connection. For me, he passed away, but he never passed away because I get up in the morning and say, "Okay, John, how you doing? Let's hear your music." So it gives you this connection. You know, it preserves history, and it was great. And I would love to have a recording of Bach playing Bach just to see what this is really about because people play it and this is how it's supposed to be played, this is how it's supposed to be played. People don't have an idea how it's supposed to be played. You're guessing. The idea is this is how it would be played. And that's why it's great when you hear these old Rachmaninoff records, even they're really bad, you get an idea how you do it. So it preserves our history as well, you know. So one day in 2,000 years, somebody can say, here's how this pop star sounded. It's a joke. Next question. Yes. Well, anything that reaches the vision. Look, my thing is if you can do it physically, that's great. But if you have a wife and kids and you can't do all that because they're going to throw you out of the house, digital works great. You know, it depends whatever you can do. If you're going to set up a studio, let's say you're a rich guy, you just build a room like this, saying, this is my room, kids, wife, you can't come in here. You have an architect, you design it, it's perfect, the speakers in the room, that's great. That's not the real world. So room correction is great. If you dial it in, it's an asset. That's all I can say. Whatever you can use tools to give you the best sound, you know. You can try different cables, anything. You know, sometimes, you know, I start to say about this cable thing, but you know, the other day, I got a new pair of speakers really fast, and it had a different cable. So you know what I did? I just grabbed some wire in the house, and I just put them on really quick, you know, that cheap really wire, and the speaker sounded awful. I was like, what's wrong with these speakers? And then I put some really nice hi-fi cable. It was like, wow, they really sound good. So this stuff does matter. Sometimes I don't know why, but it does. It's you know, and sometimes I think we measure things the wrong things. Sometimes there's things we're trying to measure, we're not even aware of why these things happen. There's so many things going on when you hear records, psychoacoustics. People want to believe in it. Sometimes it's like watch collecting, you know, you do it as a passion, you know. So there's no reality. It's just whatever you enjoy. You build a hi-fi system in a room that you love. Next. Yes.
Maybe a question regarding headphones.
Yes.
What do you think about headphones? Because you don't have this room acoustic kind of trouble. You know, you may have just the things on that are headphones for like $15,000 or something. So you could say that you know all the room acoustics doesn't matter once you have nice headphones.
Good question. Here's what we're doing at the Audiophile Society. If someone comes to us and buys a record, we offer two packages. We offer one package is PCM, which is a 192 3D speaker mix, a 9624 headphone mix, and then a DSD speaker mix. I believe that the best way to do headphones is to mix it for headphones. So we make a record for speakers, throw it out. Because every record in the world that you hear on headphones is mixed on speakers. That's it. And it's sort of like you're in a family and your older brother goes to school and you need a jacket. That's your jacket. You don't get to pick your jacket. So he says, this is your jacket, fit it. What we're doing is I'm setting up a pair of headphones, a mixer, and we're mixing it in 3D space, externalized with it, the correct HRTF, because when you mix it for speakers, it's not the same. So what I'm trying to do is create a space in there. So the sound is not coming from here. The problem with headphones, it's just in your head. But what we're doing is we're externalizing it, and you can hear things in space. And yes, headphones are great. And they're great for a few reasons. Because it's such a small driver, the distortion is nothing. It's there. Dynamics are great because it's such a small driver. So it's a great way to hear music if you're in a small house and you can't have a big hi-fi system or you're traveling. You know something? If you got a little DAC, I have a little portable DAC and a pair of headphones, you can go on the road for a month working and keep it in your hotel room and go back every night to the hotel room and hear amazing sound, okay? That exists. But what doesn't exist is the software. So that's why we're trying to do it. Now, we just started doing this. We have like 17 albums. I'm not saying it's perfect. We have a lot to learn. But it's the direction we need to go in because headphones and speakers are just not the same thing. And they can't be treated the same. So we have to totally separate them out and look at these as two different objects. It's almost like saying I have a great turntable. How come I can't play CDs on it? It's just a different thing. So that's my thing on headphones. And there's great headphones, amazing ones. And if you hear our recordings in 3D on headphones, every headphone they're going to sound different. It'll all be similar, but they'll shift because of the headphone, acoustics of your ear. And if it's in ear, it'll definitely shift as well, depending on the headphone. But you will get that sense of space. And headphones are great, and we use them a lot. And I use them to really do critical listening, because there's nothing there, and you can hear mistakes and reverb tails really great. But and then I check it on my electrostatics for speaker mixes. Next one. No, they're not designed wrong because they're designed to be transducers. It's the program material that's designed wrong. So when you put on a record mixed in 60 degrees with reverbs for a room and you put on the headphones, it's a totally different experience. So like I said, that's why we're doing special mixes for headphones. And because the problem is not the headphone, the problem is the music. It's not mixed to be played on a headphone. I mean, look, it sounds good and you can be happy and hear the music, but it can be better. And my idea is how do we make this better? And it's done on a 3-dimensional mixer in space. It's sort of like blocks. I can just say, okay, I'm going to put this there, instead of just a slider. Because remember, with a speaker, you do two things. The volume and panning. I can pan between the two speakers. I could put your voice here, 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 here. With a headphone, I have all of this, and I have behind me as well. We can put sounds back here, with 3D. And then you have this much bigger palette. It's like a canvas. With the speaker, you can paint here. Now with the headphone, we have a bigger canvas. And sometimes it's more interesting for the music because you can change the space. On a speaker, the orchestra is closed in, but we can separate the instruments out more, and you can hear the counterpoint better. So this is why we're doing this. If people are interested, I'm going to do more. But if they're not, maybe we'll stop it. I don't know. But that's very important to do. This is why I think it's critical. And we're the only people doing this. No one said, let's do just music for headphones only. And it's important because I also think this. Yesterday I went to have lunch across the street. I didn't know what this Motor World place was. I walk in and there's Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Bugattis, everything. But you know something? Every kid in the world knows what a Ferrari is and wants one. They can't afford it, but they want it. I would like to see the day when every kid in the world would say, wow, I want those big speakers and that amp. Because as an industry, we need to expose it more. But the other thing is they can't afford it. And the beauty about portable audio is I bought a headphone. I'm not going to mention any brands for $300. And that thing sounded amazing. I even use it in my studio with my $2,500 headphones. But for $300, and you can go buy a little DAC for a few $100s, somebody in college or school can afford that and then have great sound for 500-600 euros, okay? And then you can have it. And that's the first step in saying, I like good sound. Next year when I get a job, more. And when I get a better job, I'm going to buy speakers and that. So headphones plays a very important part of the industry because it's a great way for people to hear super high resolution music without spending more than 500-600 euros. And that's reachable. But some of the rooms here, you know, you need to be very wealthy to buy these things. And some of these people will be. But this way, it gets it. You know, some of the things I don't like about high-end audio is the price, because I have a lot of friends of mine musicians. They have a hard time paying the rent. A lot of friends of mine were professors at a university. It's difficult. But there's a lot of things in high-end audio that are cheap now that sound great. And also the same thing with the headphones. Anybody can have these headphones and experience great sounding music without spending a lot of money. So it plays a very important part in the ecosystem. And like I said, in the future, we'll figure out how to make the music fit. It may be DSP or maybe separate mixes. Maybe if there's enough demand, maybe the big rock bands would say, okay, we'll do a separate mix too. It costs twice as much money, so a lot of people don't want to do it. But we're willing to invest the time and to do it if people want this type of thing. You know. Next. Yes. Yeah, we're here. That's my partner, Edgar. So I've been working with Edgar for 10 years more at Princeton to do this. When I did the binaural, I met Edgar and we decided to do this joint project, binaural. And I would make the recordings, and Edgar has this thing called the Bach filter, and he cancels the crosstalk. You should go up to the room. I forgot the name of it, but if you go to all the way to the end, the F bill, F something on the second floor, it's the Bach room. You can sit there and hear it. And then you'll hear first of all, it's A, F 250. Yes, admission is 75 euros. Yes, but it's very important. Now let's talk about something else. Crosstalk corruption. Here's how this thing works. How come we can't get past 60 degrees? Because remember the McGurk effect? The brain doesn't allow it. Okay, I'm in the Berlin Philharmonic. I'm sitting there. A guy hits the timpani, boom, on the left side, right? What happens? Let's discuss it. Comes to my ear, and then it goes around my nose, and it goes to my other ear. Two things happen. When it goes a longer distance to this ear. So the brain says, okay, it's delayed. And when it gets to the other ear, the level's low. So the brain says, level is lower and all that. It does this calculation. The computer says, timpani is there. That's how we auto-locate. What happens is we have two speakers. And the speakers are close together. And you hear the timpani. And the brain says, the sound is so quick, it can't figure out that it's coming from that thing. There's not enough separation, so it locks it into that 60-degree triangle. Now what the crosstalk does, cancellation, it says to the brain, as soon as it goes boom, the computer on the other side cancels out waveform like a waterfall plot. And then it gets rid of this other speaker where the crosstalk is. And it cancels it, and all of a sudden the space just opens up. You don't need 5.1 or 6.1 to do surround. It's better with crosstalk cancellation. And here's another reason. Because if you do surround, it's a hula hoop. You know those things kids play with, the hula hoops? You know, it's a hoop. It's just the sound is on the circumference. But when you listen to an orchestra, it's densities of balls, because the flute player is here. The oboe player is there. The French horn is there to the timpani. So there's balls, concentric circles. And recording two-channel with crosstalk cancellation will give you concentric circles. You'll feel layers and layers of depth instead of everybody out there. Everybody should go to that room and listen to this because that will be the future of audio. I mean, the crosstalk cancellation. It's very important. And for 70 years, we couldn't address it. We couldn't address it because everybody knew it existed and everybody knew the principles and theories behind it, but we didn't have the computers to do the computational things in real time fast enough. It just didn't exist. Now we have computers, so we can do this. So that's the big difference. But crosstalk, interaural crosstalk, corruption exists in everything in audio. So you don't know. You know what? When, all the records you listen to now, the imaging is really here. You just can't hear it. The brain just says there. You know. So this is what is an important thing. And Edgar is addressing this by canceling the crosstalk. And that's a very important thing that has to be addressed in audio. But it's very complicated, and you just can't be like, you know, putting tubes in a thing. You need to be a mathematician and a scientist. Edgar's, you know, a physicist at Princeton University in America. Any more questions? What time is it? Is it time over yet? Almost? 7 minutes left. Okay. So now what? Good idea. You can go online, theaudiophilesociety.com. We have a free one you give away. Just give us your email. You get a free record. You can listen to it on headphones. If you like it, sign up. You can support us. You know, we have to figure out a model because I have to say, in the new model of streaming, musicians and record companies have to figure a way now to make ends meet because in the old days you could make actual money from selling records and CDs. With the micro payments on streaming services, it's not so easy. It's impossible, actually. So that's where you can go, the Audiophile Society, and you can listen to our music there. You know, and you know, you should also support all the musicians you can, touring artists, because it's an ecosystem, because it's not going to be good to have $1 million hi-fi system and there's no more musicians. You know, I have kids. My daughter has 2 records out already, Paloma, and she's starting to play big places in America, and she's only 15. But it makes me nervous. I know she's going to do well with concerts, but if you're a classical violinist or jazz musician, like, why do this today? I mean, how are you going to make a living? Because people will not pay for music anymore. They just say they won't. We've accepted that it's free. So why would a young person want to do this? So eventually, you're going to have great hi-fi systems, and it's going to go down and down. Or only pop musicians that are going to make millions of dollars on streaming or something to support it. It has to be a robust ecosystem. Everybody has to do well, from musicians to the cable people. And then it works, you know. Any more? By the way, Munich is great, and this is the best hi-fi show in the world. By far. It's like the new CES. It's international. Everybody comes from everywhere. It's just phenomenal. And Munich is a great town. Are you guys from Munich, or you came in all everywhere? Everybody's from Munich here? It's really nice. Really nice. It's very beautiful and clean. And next year I'm bringing my surfboard. I didn't know it was the surfing capital of Europe. You know? Just bring the board and go out to the river and spend the day. You know? That looks like a fun way to do it. And the food is great here, and we're staying near the Marienplatz. It's great. You're lucky. My favorite place is Garmisch. I like to go there. Sometimes before the show, I go to Garmisch, I hike, and everybody should go, and you should go to Richard Strauss's house. Have you been there? In Garmisch, Strauss lived in Garmisch. His house is still there. It's a little museum, and his scores are there. And you go to his desk and you look out the window and you see the Zugspitze, and now you know why he wrote the Alpine Symphony and all these tone poems, because he's just staring at the mountains there. It's fantastic. And he would go hiking It's great. Beautiful city.
To say something
Yeah.
about money for the musicians.
Yeah.
I'm using Tidal, and
Title. Yeah.
they play several records sometimes.
Right.
Then they say they will pay this guy or
Yeah.
musician making the record. So this I like it, Tidal.
Yeah, they need more of this. It has to change. There's many models to make it fairer, but it has to do that. Otherwise, the ecosystem collapses. You know, it's and it's not even good for the streaming service because they don't make money. So the musicians don't make money. The streaming services don't make money. I'm not a business guy. I don't understand why, but maybe somebody's smarter than me. You know. Anyway, thanks for having me. Go to the audiopilesociety.com. There's some great things. Please go up to the room. He's the guy.
With you, the room number is F215. 215. In the hall A 4.2. So you find it app or the show under Theoretica Applied Physics.
Yeah. All right. Thanks you for having me. Enjoy the show. And you know, if you're somewhere I'm playing, come visit. Don't throw any tomatoes. And if you're going to be in Dresden on the second, I'm with the orchestra. They're doing my piece. You know, I wrote this piece. You must know the story, but there was a girl in Munich named Sophie Scholl. You know about the White Rose. This is very important for me because that this was a woman with courage. So I wrote a homage to her and the students, and we're doing a big thing at the Dresden Festival. So I have a piece that's about a half hour long. It's for choir and orchestra. I recorded it. It's called the White Rose Trilogy. I recorded it with Uti Lemper. You know her? So Uti, and then some opera singers. And so we have that recording you can listen to online. It's on actually YouTube. And then so we're going to do this big piece to honor the students that were in the uprising, in this place. So if you're in Dresden, you're all invited. I would invite you.
Which place in Dresden? Is it the Kulturpalast?
I don't know. But it's a big place. It's a big orchestra. It's gonna. Yeah, one of these places there. It's on the second, and it's in my phone somewhere. But it's a good, a very nice guy. Jan Vogler invited us to do it. He's a great cellist. You know Jan Vogler, so he runs the festival. But it's great, and it's gonna. We'll see. It could be a very nice thing, but I think it's something that has to be done. People in Munich know her story. People around the world don't know her story, but it's an important story to be told. So this is why I wanted to do this, because it's a real profile in courage. I don't know anybody with the courage of Hans and Sophie Scholl that would do this today. It doesn't exist. So it's a great person. Yes.